to the midterms, we'll be having a karaoke night. Everyone's invited, and we hope you'll join us to get your things off of your mind and you can relax. And spring member apparel has been sent out for those who selected mail delivery. And we will also have a pickup location from 11 to 2 p.m. this Saturday at the Northridge Park near CSUN. And the exact location will be shared at the group chat. And also the executive applications are open and are due May 3rd at noon. And the directorship applications are due May 15th at 11:59. If anyone has questions or wants to chat, we will have a director info session next Monday from 12 to 1, an executive info session right after that one. These roles really help develop leadership skills, so we highly encourage you to apply. And we will start with introductions. So my name is Abby. For those of you who don't know me, I'm one of the evening events director this semester, and I am with my co-director. Her name is Gabby. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Gabby. I'm one of the directors this spring semester, and I'm very excited to join you all this evening.
And everyone will introduce yourself. You will state your name, the position, and the firm that you're in, and answer our icebreaker question will be, now that summer is approaching, what is your favorite drink to enjoy in the summer? And we could start with Adrian.
You're muted.
Okay, how about now? Yeah, okay, so my name is Adrian and I'm with Deloitte. And I've been with the firm for about 1.5 years. I'm working in the advisory practice as a consultant. Most of my work focuses around IT consulting. My favorite drink during the summer, I'd probably have to say 2, non-alcoholic and an alcoholic drink would probably be a Mai Tai, and that's the alcoholic drink. And then probably something mango related, like a mango nectar drink for the summer.
Anyone could go next. Barbara?
Sure. So my name is Barbara Impalazzeri. I'm with HCVT and I'm headquartered out of our Westlake Village office. I lead our data analytics practice and also our innovation committee. I was at PwC prior, so I've been with this firm for about 3 years. I graduated with a degree in finance from CSUN in 2004 and then got my MBA a year later. So I didn't actually go the CPA route. And I'll follow Adrian's lead on 2 types of drinks. So my favorite drink is any sort of fruity lemonade, like muddle some, I'll go with the mango with you too. If I'm looking for an alcoholic, I'm a strictly rosé girl these days. I used to venture off more, but now I just need a very cold glass of wine.
Yoshi, would you like to go next, please?
Sure. So I'm Yoshi J. Cody. I'm a senior manager in the audit practice at EY. Pleased to be here today. I was actually, I'm glad to see AA is still alive and kicking. I was president of AA in fall 2010, so that dates me a bit. It's definitely a good time in AA, so fond memories for sure. In terms of the icebreaker, so I'll also follow Adrian's lead here. So for non-alcoholic drink, I've lately been on a sparkling water kick. I've been just trying all the different sparkling waters at Trader Joe's basically. And then for alcoholic, I probably just have to go with beer. I mean, I drink all types of beer, but if we're talking about the summer specifically, I think a nice cold lager. And specifically, I found a beer from 805 called cerveza, which of course, as many of you probably know, in Spanish it translates to beer. So it basically is it's 805's emulation of like a Corona, and it has a hint of like lime already in it. It's pretty delicious.
Thank you for sharing. Danielle?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Danielle Anderson. I am a senior associate at CohnReznick. Let's see. First, I have to tell you, Yoshi, there's this brand Sunwink. They have very good sparkling waters. And my favorite drink in the summer, lately I've been doing a blended pina colada. So that works alcohol and non-alcohol.
Jeremy, would you like to share next?
Sorry, I had a client meeting and I'm off site, so I'm not at my laptop. But as far as a drink, non-beverage, I've been into actually making vegetable juice on my own, cold press. So that would be my go-to non-alcoholic drink.
And lastly, Robert, please.
Hey everyone, nice to be here today. For my alcoholic drink, Robert Abramowitz, Rob. I'm a business management partner at Armanino. I've been with the firm for a little bit over 4 years. I've been at several different firms prior to that. For my drinks, I'm pretty much a whiskey guy. So summertime, maybe I'll drop a big square ice cube in it. And in the winter, I'll leave the ice cube out. So pretty simple. And for non-alcoholic, nice cold Coca-Cola, preferably from McDonald's drive-through. For some reason, they have the best Coke and fries.
I agree with you on that one. Nothing beats a nice ice cold Coca-Cola. But for our first question, which is geared to Robert, Yoshi, and Adrian, the question is, as CSUN alumni, why did you choose this school and how did you begin your accounting journey?
I'll jump in since I'm I guess I have the mic. So I actually attended CSUN for the Master's in Taxation program. I did my undergrad at the University of Arizona. But I think they're very similar in their accounting programs. And for me, when it came to the master's program, I applied to both CSUN and USC, and I chose the CSUN program partially because of the reputation that the program has. I think if you look at every major accounting firm in LA, for sure, you're going to find a partner or more that are CSUN alumni. So that was something that, I noticed and resonated with me. And the other reason is I really like the way the program was structured. I actually liked the structure a lot better than the USC program. So for me, it was just a combination of, the respect that the program has and the representation you see CSUN having, throughout the accounting industry. And then just the structure of it. So I was really happy with the program and recommend it to everyone if you're thinking about going that route in the future.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say I echo that. It's a great program. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
Oh yeah. In terms of the question, I think in terms of picking CSUN, I mean, my background is a little bit non-traditional. I originally started off as an engineering major at UC Santa Barbara, and then ultimately decided to take a break and figured that wasn't right for me. And it really came down to a matter of when I decided, after playing the game of life for a bit, deciding to go back to school. I decided not to go back to Santa Barbara because at that point I'd kind of established myself here in LA again. So really, I chose CSUN due to proximity. But having said that, it turned out to be a fantastic place to kind of launch my switch from engineering to business. So walked in, met with a counselor, and learned that the accounting program specifically was really strong. And I think I've always had kind of a, even though engineering is where I thought I wanted to be, I've always in the back of my mind had an interest in business. And, when the counselor said, hey, of all our business programs, our accounting is probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest. So I said, sure, let me take an accounting class and see where it goes from there. And I took a 220 class and I loved it. And I thought it was great. And at that point, I just kind of ran with it. But I mean, I think, it's definitely, even now, after going through the program, I'm still seeing how rewarding the CSUN program is because, we end up sitting alongside folks that went to, very prestigious schools, very expensive schools, and we're at the same place. And I think that basically, you know, reinforces how great the CSUN program is.
Okay, that one's next, right? I'm next.
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I was born and raised in the San Fernando Valley, and I went to school, and I started my schooling in LAVC, Los Angeles Valley College, which is in the Valley, and I transferred out, like many of you here, to CSUN because it's local, and I wanted to make an impact on campus, and I felt like doing something for my community, especially because growing up there, I felt very connected, that I felt like I could make an impact there. And so I practiced that in community college, and then once I transferred, I was able to join VITA and do things with AA, and then I could see the effect of my impact on a local level, and that was rewarding for me, being able to help my family and my family friends with their taxes and things like that, and staying very close to home. That's another thing for me too. I'm very family oriented, so the fact that I could go to school and have my family near, it just made sense to go to CSUN. And before I even attended CSUN, I didn't even know that CSUN was recognized for their accounting program. And after about a year there, I was able to apply for the Noski scholarship, and then that's when I became I became aware of the opportunities at CSUN and how much there is available at CSUN for students. So I was lucky in that way. There are a lot of other things that I did while I was at CSUN, but I think those are some of the highlights of why I went there.
Thank you for sharing, Adrian. And since most of you, study accounting, to get where you are, can you share your experience on how did you choose your service line and the firm, and what factors did you take into consideration? And we'll gear this question to Barbara, Danielle, and Jeremy.
Thanks.
And,
you want me to start?
yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So I have a little bit of an untraditional recruiting experience. I was at PwC in downtown LA. So again, I live in Thousand Oaks. So it's about a 2-hour train ride each way to go downtown. I didn't have to go every day. And being a specialist in data analytics, I was in assurance, but I also had advisory work. So I was in 2 service lines there. And I think when I started working 100 hours a week, it was just a little too much for me. So I would take the last train home downtown, get home at 9, the kids, everyone is asleep. So I would just work more, right? I mean, I don't get to see anyone. So I would just keep working. And there was one morning I just told my husband, I said, I'm going to quit today. I don't have another job, but I'll just go to one of my clients. Now, this is very unusual for me to do something illogical like that. And I just started talking to my friends, and one of my friends said, oh, there's a regional firm that's looking for someone to start their data analytics practice. They need you. So I got hooked up with the VT of HCVT, who's the founding audit partner. And we just had a couple breakfasts and lunches and started talking. They didn't have a position open for me, but ended up trying to recruit me for that position. Again, I've been here about 3 years. So I really had the experience and the training from the Big Four to be able to implement that into a regional firm. Big Four really train you top notch. I mean, you're at the top of your game coming out of one of those. And one of the reasons that this firm is a perfect fit for me, probably through the end of my career, is the work hours and also the culture that we have, the relationships that you have with your partners. It's not kind of a grind. It's more of like a family that we have here, even though we have about 12 offices in different locations. So that's really why I chose HCVT. I'd sworn off public accounting, but I did find a firm that really fit my needs and the work-life balance. And my office, even though we're not in it right now, is 10 minutes away from my house. So when you start a family and have other obligations outside of work, that's really important as well.
I'll go ahead and answer next. When I first started recruiting, I was one of those that had no idea if they wanted tax or audit. And I thought that I wanted to go the tax route. So I was looking for an internship there. And then I kind of had tunnel vision while I was recruiting. So Cohn-Resnick, as you know, goes to Professor Weiss's 350 class. So when they came into mine, I really liked the professionals that presented. So then when mock interviews came around, I signed up to do them with Cohn-Resnick, and then I did the firm tour. Obviously, I did, the firm tour and mock interviews with other firms just to kind of keep my options open. But when it came around to the Meet the Firms, really that kind of sealed my recruiting experience. I knew a lot about the firm and I liked the initiatives that they have with the community. So I felt like I kind of found my fit. And while I was speaking with them at Meet the Firms, it seemed like, they were interested in having me come on board as well. So with recruiting, I really think that's really all it's about, is kind of being yourself and, finding where you fit and what's right for you. So it's definitely a two-way street. Luckily for me, I told them I wanted to do a tax internship, and they're like, well, all we have is audit. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just do that. And, I ended up enjoying it still. So it worked out.
So I work in M&A services at KPMG and doing strategy work. So I'm a strategy consultant. And the way that I chose my service line was probably a little bit unconventional. I have an undergrad from UCLA in economics and also in physiology. And I worked in industry for about 7 years. And then I realized that M&A was the area of focus that I wanted to work in. So I did an analysis of do I go to MBA school or do I go to master's? I went to CSUN to get my master's in accounting. That was my ultimate decision. It was a little bit of an uphill battle to enter the Big Four in M&A at first, but with my prior work experience and networking with professionals, I was able to get interviews with Big Four and eventually had a couple of different offers to go in and do either diligence of FDD or strategy work at KPMG, which I ultimately decided to go to KPMG and do strategy consulting for M&A deals. And primarily my decision was A, the work, and then B, the people that I work with, and the belief that I was given off the bat that I would be able to go in and do good work while at KPMG.
Well, thank you all for sharing. It's always nice to hear kind of these non-traditional routes into successful careers. So thanks for sharing. The next question is for Adrian, Robert, and Danielle. How has your undergrad degree from CSUN set you apart from your colleagues and peers?
Yeah, I could jump in here. So I'd say that my degree has set me apart from my colleagues and peers by giving me that accounting background. A lot of the folks I work with at the moment have more of an IT background. So having an understanding of how the general ledger is affected by the systems that we work with, or how an income statement, or just how any financial statement is affected by applications and technology, has given me a deeper understanding of how the bigger picture works. And I think that's super valuable going into any job, is just looking at the bigger picture. And so my degree gave me a very technical fundamental basis, and then coming in here kind of gave me the bigger picture of things.
Yeah, so I would say, oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, sure. So more so as opposed to my CSUN degree setting me apart or having me stand out, I think it was kind of easier to make a connection knowing that you had a degree from CSUN, because especially at the recruiting events, a lot of people that I met anyways were CSUN alums. So it kind of gives you that common ground to even just ice break with in a way. People love their school and they love sharing similar experiences about professors and associations. So for me, it was more so, I don't really think it set me apart, but I think it set me up for success and set me up to make easy connections.
Yeah, just kind of building off of that. Again, I'll speak about the master's program because that's what I did at CSUN. But and as I mentioned earlier, you're gonna have a lot of colleagues, and there's gonna be partners at firms that are CSUN alumni. So I think that just gives you sort of that connection to other people. And in terms of like the master's program, I think it was really helpful. I think the master's is a little bit more focused on like case studies and kind of incorporating, some work experience with, some of the conceptual stuff. So I thought, the professors were great and it was just a really good experience. But again, for me, picking CSUN, it was the structure of it, and it was looking around and seeing like, okay, all these firms have partners that came from CSUN. So I felt confident that that was going to give me a good foundation.
Thank you for sharing. For the next question, it will be for Yoshi, Jeremy, and Barbara. And have the skills you learned both inside and outside of the classroom translated to your current role?
Sure, I could take that one first. I would say emphatically yes. It's, like researching guidance, learning the impact of like overstatement, understatement that you got beat with in Accounting 350, cash flows, consolidations, all that stuff is, very relevant to what you do, and especially in my, an audit practice. We deal with that stuff on a day-to-day basis. Now, of course, in the professional world, it's basically on steroids. So it's a lot more complicated, and there's a lot more, intricacies, and, I guess it's not what you would expect from your accounting textbooks, right? It's always, those are good examples to kind of help you get an understanding of it. But in the real world, it gets much more nuanced and complex. That's really the only difference there. But a lot of that stuff, having and being able to think, what's the impact of this when my clients make errors in the financial statements, we have to think, just like in 350, what's the understatement or overstatement impact? How does this translate to the financial statements? Is it materially off, or is it just something that we can live with, like a waivable difference? So I think all that stuff translates very well, especially like writing skills, like technical memos. That stuff is very important. I think that also is it translates well if you learn how to write those accounting technical memos. They still do the 351 comms class. Is that still a thing? Yeah.
I think they're changing it now. It was just, they're going to remove that one.
Oh, okay.
And just leave it 351. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So we had that comms class back when we took 351, and they kind of went hand in hand. So, I'm sure they may be changing the course structure, but I'm sure that there's still a strong emphasis on the communications aspect of it, because at the end of the day, we're client servers. So communicating with the client is critical. And then in terms of outside the classroom, I think, it also carries over very well. So like your leadership positions in AA, being able to be a club leader, that translates over to leading a team. And networking, like meet the firms, all that stuff, that's going to translate well when you have networking opportunities at the firm, or also, your clients, going to happy hour with them and being able to network with them and learn that, that chit chat skills. I think that's also very important.
I'll go next. So to kind of piggyback off of what Yoshi's kind of highlighted, I would say that first and foremost, what I learned inside the classroom was really dedication and perseverance, and making sure that what you delivered to your professor or to your exam, which would be yourself, was really 110%. And that's something that you're going to definitely want to take with you to the firm, especially when you work with clients and you're having to engage with executives and kind of get an understanding of their business really quickly because they're going through a transaction. So you're going to be working with like a lot of data. You're going to be looking at financial statements and having to find areas of concern or areas of highlight that you want to go and highlight to your client of opportunity And those things are really, in all honesty, something that you learn the foundation for in school, but then when you get into the workplace, you're taking that foundational knowledge and then kind of building on that in a very, very fast pace, and more so through, you know, Excel and modeling and so forth of statistical modeling tools. So I would say that, you know, really what you want to take away from your skills that you get inside the classroom are, you know, how you're committed to your craft, how you kind of drive yourself to motivate yourself, and then what you learn outside of the classroom is also, you know, pretty applicable to work, because at the end of the day, you're working with people and you have to be able to relate to everybody else. They all have other circumstances outside of work, and you have to be able to kind of find a common ground of being able to relate with somebody else, because at the end of the day, like, you're a client serving professional. So you want to be able to have the client really resonate with who you are as a person.
Thank you, Jeremy. And Barbara, would you like to share anything for this question?
Yeah, thank you. So the skills I learned inside the classroom, I would say getting the broad knowledge of all different types of business. So I was a finance major, remember, so I only took about 2 or 3 accounting classes, but getting that broad knowledge of all different types of business has really helped me, especially when you move to accounting and you have to figure out what industry you want to be in, right? So I took real estate classes, insurance classes, and that really helps to kind of talk the talk when you have to be around clients. I also learned, you know, knowing accounting does help. So not being a CPA, I can't sign off on work papers and sign off on audits, but you do have to be able to talk to CPAs, because that's 98% of the people that I work with, right? So you need to have that foundational knowledge of managerial and financial accounting. So I'm glad I got that as well. I would say, as far as getting that advanced degree, that's really a door opener. So if you have letters after your name, whether it's CPA or MBA, you don't have to have a ton of experience because you've proven yourself with that education. So I found that advanced degree has really helped just get interviews, get in the door, and, you know, be able to progress my career. Outside of the classroom, I think my skill set really developed. I was in, I know we call it industry, but I was at Bank of America for 12 years prior to joining public accounting. And I learned a lot on the job. So again, I'm like half audit, half technology. I learned SQL. I'm really heavy into Alteryx. I use IDEA. I know there's an audit analytics class around IDEA right now. So all this technology and software I learned outside the classroom, and it's very hard to learn it inside because you have to just do it day over, you know, every day. You know, find out where things are broken, fix it. You know, taking a class is great to understand the structure, but doing it every day is a completely different thing. So I'm really glad I had that experience as well to learn.
Thank you, Barbara. Gabby, next question.
Yes, so our next question is actually for Barbara, Danielle, and Robert. If you were in the position to hire new graduates from CSUN, what skills or characteristics would you look for in the candidates?
Should I go back to back on this one? Okay. So I look for very different skill sets. I'm looking for project management. I'm looking for people who can code. I'm looking for great communication skills, people that can map out a process, a traditional process, and see what a future state looks like. So that's a willingness to learn. You know, the traditional accounting, I believe, is changing pretty rapidly. You know, we're really focused on full population testing instead of sampling, right? As an auditor, how much you're going to find if you look at 0.001% or whatever your calculation spits out, how many transactions you need to look at. So I really focus on people that want to make a change. They want to be innovative. They see a process and say, oh, we have interns do the same thing, you know, file tax extensions, you know, 100,000 of them, when we can create a bot to do that. So that's really where I'm going. I want to get people that see a different vision for us, so that we can stay competitive within the market and that we can also increase our profitability. So for example, I ran a bot last night that, did a certain process for HR that used to take them a few hours, and I just set it off before I left for the day, and then it ran overnight. So basically it's hands off. So I'm looking for those people that have a future vision, as well as kind of the fundamental understanding of accounting, so they know the current process, what it looks like with regulatory issues and things like that, but can also see what it should look like in the future.
Danielle?
So when I look for the qualities that I look for in a candidate, it's always nice to see good grades and participation in the student clubs. But more so, I look for someone who can take an interview and make the time together feel more like a conversation, as opposed to just a bunch of question and answers. I think it's just an easy way to connect with the people that you're speaking with. But also, I think it's important to go into any interaction with confidence. And if you're gearing yourself towards a specific firm, I think it's important to have previous knowledge about that firm. People love talking about themselves, and in turn, people love talking about the firm that they work for. So I would just say looking for someone who goes in with confidence and, trying to make the best of the interview process and whatever interaction that they're currently in.
Yeah, for me, and you both kind of hit on some of the things already, but definitely looking for team players. A lot of what we do is collaborating, and more of what accounting is collaborating with people in different groups. I'll collaborate with someone in our outsource group, someone in our corporate tax group, someone in our M&A group, all to help a client with a specific, transformation that they're trying to do. So, you got to be a team player, and you got to kind of have that attitude, and collaboration is essential. And obviously communication is part of that. Positive energy, have a good attitude, just be willing to, come ready to work. And obviously we all have issues going on in our personal lives, but together, if we all have a positive attitude, we could help lift each other up. Obviously, grades are important coming out of school, but at the same time, it's not about, can you recite different, revenue codes, or, I forget, I haven't done audit in 15 years. I forget what you guys call them, but, your different regulations. To me, that's not really important. You can look those things up these days. So, it's more about being resourceful, having, a good understanding of what you don't know, and how to find those things out, right? Just being resourceful. And lastly, like someone who's empowered, someone who, as Barbara mentioned, wants to innovate, and when they have an idea, they're going to run with it, and they're going to go ahead and do it and make a mistake and ask for forgiveness afterwards, right? That's not always the right thing to do, but, just be empowered and run with something, and don't wait for, the people above you to have to pull you along. Really have an idea and be passionate about something. And so those are really the things that I look for, and I think that our firm looks for. And I'm sure, the other firms are looking for similar things.
Thank you, Rob. I think all of those things are important as well. For the next question, this will be for Jeremy, Adrian, and Yoshi. And how have your career goals changed since starting in your full-time career?
So I think that the way that I'll put that is, when you're in school, you're training. And when you're in work, you're actually performing. So when you're performing, you have to now look ahead and say, how do I get better? Right? Like, what did I do? And why did I do this? And what does this mean? And how can I take this knowledge and move forward? So I think that with that outlook of looking at school and education as the training grounds and the workforce as the performance. My career goals have shifted towards now learning what I'm doing with my clients, seeing how I can apply that in the future and maybe make some tweaks to make things either faster, more efficient, maybe a little bit more accurate as far as not having to double check certain things. So maybe there's like some data model that I'm building and there's a built-in check verification that is there. And then the biggest last one that I would say is looking ahead, right? So you want to see like, okay, well, what is my director doing? What is my managing director doing? What are the skills that I would need to acquire to get to those positions? And then you start building those in and day out to your daily routine so that, you know, a year from now, 2 years from now, you're actually kind of performing in parallel to maybe a step or 2 steps above where you are. Those are kind of how my goals have shifted starting working.
I can go next. I think that's really important that you say that, Jeremy, because at the end of the day, I find myself looking back at the archives and thinking about how I can change that for a specific client. So that's very important. For me personally, when I started my accounting career, I thought I wanted to be a CPA. And I think Barbara might resonate with this one here, but I dove into the CPA material and I realized that wasn't my calling after trying to sit through, you know, what is it, FAR? I was working on FAR. I don't know why I thought that would be the best one to start with. And it was daunting. It was a lot of work and I was working a part-time job and it was kind of hard to sit down and just focus for a few hours. So I didn't find it to be totally relatable to the work that I was doing at the time too. And since then, I've changed my goals to a different technical certificate. And that's more of a short-term goal. I think long-term goals kind of stayed relatively the same. But as far as career goals, I don't see myself following the track to partner. I think it's shifted the definition of how, or well, the track to get there has shifted since, you know, the last 20 years. So it's not the same for how people can get to partner. It doesn't take 10 or 15 years. It can take up towards to like 20 years at firms like Deloitte. And I mean, some people are bred for that, I guess. And I'm personally, I'm always changing my scope of work and what my interests are. One minute I'm looking at crypto, the next minute I'm looking at stocks, right? And these are all things that are in my interest. But since leaving college, I realized that there's so much more now in the private or in the industry, and working at Deloitte has given me that perspective and knowing that there's a lot of opportunity out there. And I think with that, I'm kind of always shifting my goals. But like I said, relatively long-term goals, still the same. I still want to stay in the industry and be a leader in my practice. And that takes one day at a time, just really focusing on my craft.
Yeah, and I guess I to kind of touch on what Adrian mentioned, I think it is good to have kind of like evolving short-term goals as well as an underlying long-term goal. And I think for me, the underlying long-term goal that hasn't really changed is wanting to learn. And I think there's no I guess lack of learning in you know, accounting, and especially in public accounting. And you know, I think in terms of where things have changed since I started full time, you know, in the beginning, I think I was just kind of open to everything and anything. I just wanted to kind of get my feet wet and learn about different industries and different, you know, types of companies. And now, you know, 9-10 years later, as I've seen some of those industries now, I think I know that my goals are more focused on, I'm actually in the real estate practice at EY in LA. So now I primarily work on real estate firms, and that's kind of where I enjoy being. So I think, and also like in terms of, you know, just being open to anything now, I do try to just focus on real estate and then focus on more really sharpening my technical skills, as well as also evolving my leadership skills. Since as a senior manager, it's a little bit more, you know, it's definitely a lot more client facing, where I'm now working on my networking and client-facing skills, having, learning how to have difficult conversations with clients, things like that. That's where I'm trying to start improving myself this far into my career.
Thank you all for sharing. I think it's really important to have like those goals in mind and to also allow them to change as you grow moving forward in your career. So thank you for sharing. The next question is for Robert, Barbara, and Danielle. What is one of the biggest challenges that you're currently facing at your job, and how are you getting through it?
I think for me, I think it's managing just the quantity of stuff that comes my way. I mean, I spend most of my day kind of dealing with people, whether it's clients, whether it's our staff people, whether it's, firm initiatives. So that doesn't always leave a lot of time for client work or for busy work. And so just kind of finding the balance for that and finding tools to help manage it, finding different methodologies to read about. I'm sure you've all heard about like Inbox Zero. There's something called Getting Things Done. It's just kind of learning about all these methods and finding tools that will allow me to implement them, find ways to automate them. Someone brought up bots and also even delegating things back to clients. So that's sort of like the balance that I'm, trying to do. And like I said, most of my day it's dealing with people. So it's hard to find that balance, but technology, is not something to be scared of. And I think it's something to embrace and try to use it to not work harder, but work smarter. And that's the essence of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that a little bit, Rob, because I'm trying to make our firm more efficient, right? That's my whole goal, is to, increase profitability. And I think my biggest challenge is making that change within the firm and getting people's buy-in on it. Again, we have the same type of people that I work with, right? They're all accountants. They have the same type of mindset. Last year it worked, and we're going to do the same thing this year, right? So it's very hard to convince people to change that, because that model has worked historically for a long time, because we charge, by the hour, right? So being more efficient doesn't necessarily, benefit people to put a lot of time into it. Also, since I innovate within all the practice areas, one of my challenges is business acumen. So I have to learn about business management, home office, tax, valuations, M&A. I know audit really well, but that's a challenge too, because generally in accounting firms, you focus on one practice area. Like if you're a tax person, you're a tax person. So for me to change anything, I need to learn how they're doing it now in each area. And how I'm getting through this, it's really been through networking and trust. You can't just force things down from the top on people. You have to prove your worth and prove that things are working and that it's going to be better different ways. One of the things I've found is that there are secret little innovators or data analyst people hidden around the firm, right? So you've got to find those people and make them your champions, do pilots with them, make it work. And then when people see results and they see, oh, this person used to work 12 hours a day and now they only have to work 8, people are going to jump on board. But it's a very slow process to kind of change traditionally how people are doing things.
So my thought on the current challenge that I'm facing right now was more geared towards everybody's favorite topic these days, which is the pandemic. So I would say that the biggest challenge, as we all know, the pandemic shifted the profession to this remote work environment. And being an audit, we spend weeks out at the client site, having lunch with the client, just talking to the client. So I think that building that connection with the clients has been more challenging, given everybody's so busy and with the remote life and furloughing staff. So they're short staffed, where everybody's just so busy that it kind of makes it more difficult to connect and build that relationship. Also, same thing with the pandemic, new staff are starting and their experience is different because everything is completely remote. They don't get that sense of feeling like they're part of a team. So I think that's been a big struggle for me. I can't complain too much because, you know, the pandemic started last busy season. So I avoided driving downtown for about 4 weeks, which was so nice. But all in all, I think, you know, to get through it, I just try to break up my day a little bit more and, you know, to make it more relevant. It's like you take an online class in college, you know, to kind of sleep in a little bit, change the scene, but doing everything online is just so different. So I think getting by is just, you know, break the day up, do things a little bit differently. I don't work in sweatpants every day. I try to put some perfume on and, you know, make the best of it. So hopefully things will change with the vaccinations and everything coming out.
Thank you, Danielle, for sharing. Yeah, online is, I feel like it's so much more different than, you know, what it could be in person. For the next question, it will be for Jeremy, Yoshi, and Robert. What is something you wish you knew before starting full time? And we can start with Jeremy.
That's a good question, and I've thought about this since I've had the questions. And I don't know if I have 100% of a full answer, but I'm going to give you the best shot at it. I think the thing that I probably wish I knew was best was the concept of deep work. And so deep work really is the ability to hone in on one thing for a short period of time and really focus on that with no distractions. So your email, you know, your Outlook won't be open, your Teams, you know, app won't be open, your phone won't be nearby, and you'll be able to like really closely focus on that. Now, the downside to that is that you can't really do that when you're dealing with clients, and especially when you're doing a transaction, because information is flowing in it, you know, all the time. So I would say that take that concept, but also knowing how to focus on one thing, really, you know, to focus on that, but then also be able to get information while you're focusing on that. I think that's the ability to do that really helps a lot when you're serving a client and you're going through a transaction.
Yeah, deep work is huge. I echo that. Definitely read about it. There's a book by Cal Newport. Deep work is so critical. It's so hard to do. It's a very easy concept, but it's extremely difficult to implement it, especially when you're working at a higher level, because you are dealing with a lot of people trying to, you know, that need your attention. So I definitely agree with that. And then the other thing for me is just patience. You know, I mean, it takes time to really become well-versed in this field. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you do tax or audit or business management or, you know, in technology or M&A. I mean, it just takes years to really master it and be confident. And that's when things start clicking, right? Once you have that confidence, I think that's when your career can really start taking off. But it just takes time to get there. And, you know, some people might get there in 5 years and other people might get there in 10 years. So just be patient and stick with it. And as someone who's worked at several different firms until I kind of found the place that felt like my forever firm, I will also tell you that, you know, the grass isn't always greener. So you're in the moment of something and it kind of feels like you want to jump ship or make a change. But again, just have that patience. And I think the most important thing is to have good mentors and good people you could talk to. And maybe making a change is the right thing. Maybe it's not, but just have people that you could talk to openly and just that patience and long-term approach to it. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think Jeremy and Rob shared some excellent examples. I too was struggling a bit on how to answer this question. I mean, one thing definitely, if I know it's not for everyone, but if you are thinking about getting the CPA licensure, getting that done, of course, is gonna, before you start working full time, will make it a lot easier. I had to take all 4 exams when I started at EY, which was tough because 3 of the exams I took during busy season. So definitely was some of the darkest days of my life, but got through it. With that being said, I mean, I think just knowing that you're not going to know everything, right? So just to a certain extent, sometimes you question yourself, especially in your, early years as a staff, you question yourself like, oh, wow, I didn't know that, or man, did I do something wrong? But you need to kind of just fall back on knowing that, hey, if you're doing the best you can and you're asking the right questions and you're engaged in your work, you're going to make some mistakes, and that's okay. And that's where you rely on, I mean, everybody here, I think all these firms that everyone works at, it's kind of similar in the sense that we work under kind of an apprenticeship model, right? So like everyone that works, your seniors, your managers, your senior managers, partners, they all are, they take you in as their apprentice and they teach you, and that's how you grow. So, going back to that earlier question about, what you're transferring over from the classroom to the work, it's one thing that's changing a bit is it's not just pure instruction, it's apprenticeship model, and you're working collaboratively. So kind of letting yourself be vulnerable to that process, open yourself up, your mindset up to kind of go through that learning process, I think is important.
Thank you, Yoshi. Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Rob, for answering the question. This will be our last question for the panel. We will have it's almost 6, so we will have give more students more time to ask their questions. Any questions that they want to ask, they could put it in the chat, and then we'll let you know if there's a question in the chat, or they could just speak out and unmute themselves. Zakhar, you have a question?
Yes, hello there. Hi, everyone. Thank you to the panelists for attending. This has been so very insightful. I also want to say thank you, A, for hosting this. I'm even though I'm a finance major, accounting is my very first love. Justin, thanks for inviting me, and Brianna, nice to meet you finally. So I want to say thank you to everybody. And I actually had a question for Barbara, or anyone else wants to answer this, but I found it so impressive you were a finance major and you ended up in accounting. And so I find myself as a finance major wanting to come back to accounting. And I wanted to ask you, how was that transition? Was it super difficult? And how did you kind of navigate your way through that?
Yeah, it was a little difficult. If I had my CPA license, it would have been, my journey would have been a lot easier. But I didn't take a traditional path. So when I graduated with my finance major, I thought, hey, if I want to be a bigwig in business, I either have to be a lawyer, an accountant, or an MBA. And I couldn't stand the fact that to be a lawyer and accountant. Sorry, everybody. So I said, okay, MBA, right? Let me just get that one. And then I started working at Bank of America doing reporting, project management, very heavy focus on Six Sigma. Now, most of the people probably don't remember the 2009, or you might be too young to really have lived through the financial collapse. So I was in mortgage at Bank of America, started with Countrywide. So I really thought to myself, wow, there's a really good chance I'm going to get laid off here, right? Because Bank of America had a very toxic kind of mortgage portfolio. So I thought to myself, how do I, as a business professional, up my game? How do I make myself the most valuable person? I said, I have to go to a Big Four, right? You have that on your resume, that experience, plus the education of whatever letters you want after your name. And I made the leap, right? So my advice, if you're a finance major now, finance and accounting are very close, right? So I learned a ton being a finance major, but being a CPA is a much different story. So think real hard if you want to, sign off on work papers. Are you interested in tax or audit or business management, M&A? What are you interested in?
kind of been interested in audit.
Okay. Yeah, so in audit, I mean, being a CPA is like, it's a plus plus. I wish now that I did have one at this stage in my life. Probably not going to go back to school and, go through that grueling exam where I am in life. But I would say if you're interested in accounting, you should take it seriously to get your license.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I actually am planning on taking my CPA this year, or at least
Awesome.
starting to study for it. So that's definitely in my wheelhouse. So thank you for answering that. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the question.
So we have a question in the chat from Nicole. She says, great presentation, thank you. Some mentioned that you attended the master's program at CSUN. She realizes that the program structure may have changed a bit, but what do you recommend she brush up on before starting, since she is coming from a management major? And anyone can take this question.
I can take that. Or do you want to go first, Rob?
Sure. I mean, honestly, my biggest advice before doing a master's program, in my opinion and in my experience, is have some actual work experience before you do it. I think that the most that you'll get out of it is the case studies and those types of projects. And if you have real work experience, you're going to be able to really use a lot of the tools that you learned and just apply it in different ways. And that light bulb is going to kind of go off in your head. Whereas I think people who went into these programs right at undergrad, it was just like a textbook, experience for them. And I think it's just totally different. So you don't need 10 years of experience, but I think even just having a couple of years of experience is going to help you apply it and work through those case studies in a different way.
And I'd say to piggyback off that, because I went to CSUN for the master's in accounting, I agree with 100% that work experience is by far a necessity, because it puts everything that you learn in the classroom into context. But even furthermore, it gives you a purpose of like, why are you doing the master's, right? What are you going to get out of it? How are you going to use the master's? And if you're going to use the master's degree to pivot from one direction to another, that's great. And you should have that in your story. But I think that the work experience is what teaches you that that's the tool to pivot. The master's is the tool to pivot from point A to point B. And so I think that, having that work experience, having that reason why you want to do that master's degree is great, and that's needed. And then I would say if that's your decision and that tool is going to be valuable, then I would say get ready to run, because the CSUN Master's program is going to challenge you. It's in a quartered fashion nowadays, so it's very fast paced. You're not going to have a lot of time to review material. You'll have to focus on what you're doing this week to apply it. But that's great experience for, if you are to enter the Big Four, that's good experience, because you're going to have to get ready to run when you're working with clients. And I'm sure it's that way with every other firm.
Yeah, I agree with that on the master's. The experience really helps, even though I did it the opposite way. So I went straight from undergrad to grad school, and kind of the personal side of it was I was engaged, I was ready to get married, I was ready to work full time. And I think if I would have waited 5 years, which is, looking back, probably ideal for me to get that work experience, I probably would have never gone back to school, just because I was married, full-time, babies, all that takes away from being able to go to school, from 7 to 10 every night and, on Saturdays. So there's two sides of it, but I do agree that having that experience, you get a lot more out of it.
Justin, you had a question?
Yeah, so one thing that I especially see along like audit and advisory consulting is like facilitating a positive change like with clients, but like people naturally, they could be hesitant to change. It's just human nature. It's like, what are some of like the best ways that you go about that? Especially like as someone who could be new, younger, and you're trying to learn the landscape.
I think I could take this question here. I'm relatively new, I think, to the firm, and just having a positive attitude, coming into these meetings with your notes ready, looking at prior year evidence in advance and being knowledgeable and showing that you're making an effort goes a long way with both your team and the client. And honestly, having a smile on your face too really makes a difference, because sometimes the first thing you see is somebody's, your team on Zoom. And so, sharing a positive vibe is so, I think it's under, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not recognized enough, I guess.
Underappreciated.
There we go. Underappreciated, underrated. Yeah, there we go. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that, I think our goal as professionals in this industry is to help clients make a transformation. It's we've evolved from, you just think about industry in general. It used to be like the industrial age, right? And then that sort of transformed, and then it was sort of like being a professional, and then that transformed into being like a relationship focus. And I think now the focus is on helping people and companies achieve transformations. And how do you do that? It's just, like you said, having a positive attitude, being resourceful, listening, asking questions. Someone mentioned, I think it was Yoshi mentioned, asking questions or having questions earlier. He said something about questions. Questions are so important. To ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of times might seem like a stupid question, but it could be a question that, is so simple, and you ask the question, it's like, hey, why are we doing this? And everyone kind of looks around and is like, I don't know, and that gets people thinking about things differently. So it is all about, helping clients achieve something and achieving transformations. And the only way to do that is really by collaborating and by being resourceful. That's the experience I've had.
Yeah, I think to add to what both Rob and Adrian said is, when you first join an engagement team, you have very fresh eyes and a very fresh mind. So you might say something exactly what he said, where we're like, oh, why are we still doing that? Like, we didn't really think about that. Or, I always tell my staff, try to add value to the work paper. As Barbara said, auditors, we like to do the same things as last year a lot of time. Oh, the procedures work, let's do it. But I like to tell my staff, bring a fresh mind and add value to every work paper, no matter what it is. If it's something small or big, just try to add value to it. And I definitely expect that, the staff come with a ready to learn attitude. They're asking questions. And back when we were in person, I love to see somebody writing down things as I'm explaining, walking you through a work paper, because I know it's your first time seeing it. So if you're writing things down, it makes me feel like you're actually paying attention. So I think that's a good thing to do as well.
Thank you, Danielle. Brianna, did you have a question?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for joining us. Just because I like hearing from, our alums, what is anyone can answer this. What is one favorite memory you had at CSUN at your time there? Like what's one thing that you think back on college and you're like, wow, that's what like made me happy?
I can take that. I'll start off with that. So I went to CSUN as a grad student, and I used to get to the rec center, I think at like 5:30 in the morning every morning. And mind you, I was in my 30s at the time. And I'd get, lace up my shoes and be like, all right, I'm gonna play basketball. And one of my grad school friends like entered the gym, and he was like, "What are you doing here? It's like, it's really early." I'm like, "Oh, I come every morning." And he's like, "Oh, we should play basketball." And I remember playing, and we come back to win a 2-on-2 game, and we come back to class, and it made me feel like I was like a college student again. Like I was young, and I'm like, I was coming to grad school, returning, from working full time, and I was working well in grad school. So I would say, that was a fun time. And I would say to you that make those, like, I know the world's different and we're all virtual, but find something that you're passionate about. Well, the world's the way it is, and make sure you take that away from your school experience, because it's important. You look back at it with like fond memories.
Yeah, I can jump in for the next one. This is still fresh in my memory. It was like 2 years ago. But really just, I'm a social creature, and I found that out through the program at CSUN, being part of the clubs and being part of the organizations and just participating in class. And after class, walking out of class and seeing friends and waving at people in the club, the clubs and stuff, posting outside. It was nice to see people and walk down the halls and be able to have that kind of relationship with your classmates. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that, and it gave me that college experience that I was looking for, and I miss it. Ever since the COVID thing, we really haven't been able to socialize. So I look back on that, since that was probably the last time I was very social.
I had a pretty good time throughout CSUN. I think that, all the different connections and friends and great professors were awesome. I think one of the events that stood out the most to me, though, is when during the membership barbecue for AA, we convinced 3 professors to let us pie them to raise money. So we sold pies for we're students, right? So we didn't sell for very, very expensive. They were like $3-4 a pie, and you can buy a pie and throw it at them. And so that was fun. It was, I think everyone got a kick out of it. Although the professors did complain that they smelled like dairy for the next 4 days. I didn't realize that when you're doing a pie throwing contest, you should use non-dairy whipped cream. So that's a little insider pro tip, because if you use the dairy whipped cream, it'll stay on your skin for quite a bit. They're not happy about that. So
Who were the professors?
Oh, so there was Dr. Jones, was Dr. Lazzaroni, actually, he's department chair, and I forget I didn't actually take a class with him, but there was another gentleman. I don't even know if he still works at CSUN, but yeah, I can't remember the name of the third one, but definitely Jones and Lazzaroni.
That's funny.
Is Dr. Jones still teaching, or is he retired?
I'm not familiar with him, so I don't think so.
Must be retired now.
But thank you for sharing your memories. I love hearing them.
Yes, thank you for your wonderful stories. We have another question in the chat from Henry, who asks, do you remember the first task you were given when you started on your first day? What exactly did you do? And how did that go? Was there a big learning curve? If so, how did you prepare for it?
Well, I'll give mine for HCVT. So I came in as an audit principal. So my first day, I got client work. And the founding audit partner said, here's one of my clients. It was a huge client. And he said, look through all the work papers and see how you can make this audit better. And I thought that was the best task I could have ever gotten. So I looked through the binder. That's where you keep all your work papers, like a repository. It's called a binder. And came up with some ideas, and he was on board with them. So that was like a great first day to me, because I jumped right in. I didn't have to learn, the ins and outs of an accounting firm, because I'd already come from one. So that was a good first day.
I can jump in next. My first day, I mean, outside of training, my first day, I was staffed on a deal before I actually got out of official training. And I was told, okay, so take this client data and then go and find some market data because we need to do a market analysis, which called a commercial diligence analysis. And basically, I was given very little supervision based on the fact that I came in with several years of professional experience and had a lot of modeling background. I can say to you, the learning curve in M&A is very, very steep. So you're learning day in and day out, and everything from communication skills to challenging clients, to questioning data sources, to technology skills and modeling skills. And then also learning the industry, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a transaction that falls within the economy that needs to have value for the client. So I would say to you, that was my experience, and that's kind of the learning curve and what you kind of face.
So I don't really remember my first day by any means. There's obviously a lot of training, and then you jump into small tasks like sending confirmations, splitting, ticking and tying work papers and such. But I do remember maybe into my second week, the senior was out on PTO, and I had been CC'd on one of the client emails, and the client was asking a question and called my line. And I remember I was so scared to answer the phone because I had no idea what they were going to ask and if I could answer the question or not. So luckily the senior manager was like around my desk at the time. And I just remember he was like, we can put it on speaker. And so we took the call together, and I just remember feeling so supported from the very beginning. So that was a scary experience for me, but I no longer, panic when the client calls. So it's nice to feel supported from the beginning. So.
Thank you for answering. I have a question for anyone that wants to answer. Do you still have contact with people from your alumni class, and has done networking with them or having a relationship with them has helped in your career?
I'll jump in and talk about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if people from your alumni group will be colleagues of yours in whichever firm you're in. I found that experience, and that was from a master's program, which is a much smaller group. And even from people that weren't in my program, I stayed in touch with a couple of them, and just kind of check in. And from time to time, when I know our firm's looking for someone good, I'll reach out to them and try to get them to come over to Armanino if I can. But otherwise, just seeing them have success, and remembering the times that we studied together, worked on a group paper project or something like that. So I think those people, you kind of stick with them, you keep an eye on them on LinkedIn. And then, like I said, you'll probably have a couple colleagues that, were either in your class or maybe a class above or below you.
Thank you, Rob. And we have a question in the chat from Nicole, and she says, we have a lot of graduating members this semester. Does anyone have tips for starting the studying process for the CPA?
I'll jump in again, and I'll tell you what for me, the magic formula, and this worked for the CPA. I have a CFP, which is Certified Financial Planner, and it also worked in the master's program. For me, it was 20 hours a week, and I did all those while working full time at an accounting firm. But it was 20 hours a week of studying. So for me, it was 2 hours every night, and then 10 hours on the weekend, however you want to break it up. And then it was just doing as many practice questions as possible. I didn't waste a ton of time reading. I just jumped into the practice questions, and anytime I got it right or wrong, I read why that was the correct answer. And I just did that thousands of times for a couple months, 20 hours a week. And that was, for me, that was the magic bullet. And I tell staff people that all the time. You got to find what works for you. And that's my recommendation for everyone.
That actually literally was the exact same thing I would say, is it's exactly what I did for the CPA, and it worked for me. So during the week, you know, having taken all 4 exams while working full-time at EY, it was during the week, it was an hour or 2 just to chip away at it. And then on the weekends, it would be longer sessions, like 8, 12 hours, whatever you can, you know, I mean, it's like marathon sessions on the weekends if you're doing this with a full-time job. But that's the best way to do it. And then same thing, it's really is just doing the practice questions. And then, as Rob said, looking and seeing what you got wrong and why you got it wrong and understanding it, and just kind of hammering those areas that you got wrong. So that's, I couldn't agree more there.
Thank you, Yoshi and Rob, for answering Nicole's questions. I have another question for anyone that could answer. What are the stress coping mechanism you use to stay balanced? I know right now during these times it's mostly busy season for most of you. So how do you stay, you know, balanced, you know, if you have a lot of stress on some days and some days you don't?
I'll take that. So in my service line, we don't have busy season right now. The economy is going, like, deals are like, they're just abundant. So there's tons of work. So which means that there's a lot of stress, right? Because you have, depending on how you network at the firm, you'll have a lot of MDs or partners asking you to staff you on deals. So they'll be like, oh, I have this deal, I need to do this and this. Do you have what's your availability? And when you start having a lot of people, you know, come into your inbox and asking you to, you know, work on their deals, and you only have so much time in the day, it becomes really stressful. So I 100% agree with that question. And I was actually hoping that you guys would ask that, because I think that's really key to driving good work and asking good, like, you know, a lot of the professionals have said, asking good questions, because you want to come to work mindful, right? And you want to learn. And so doing that, you need a stress outlet. Mine personally is, I do what's called gravel cycling. So it's a hybrid between road cycling and mountain biking. And I do that every morning before I, you know, jump on my computer, minus when it's raining. But I would say to you, you got to find a stress outlet, because you need to kind of release that, so that when you come into work, you're able to be mindful, you're able to ask good questions, and you're able to kind of take the knowledge that you get on, you know, one type of engagement and move that forward and take that with you.
Yeah, so my way of kind of dealing with stress and, you know, for busy season, it's nice to know that there's an end to it. Like if you're an audit, 4:30 is a big deadline, right? You know, there's an end to it. So, you know, you can kind of sprint towards things, even if you don't have time to do a lot of stuff that you'd like to in your life during that. So kind of seeing that it's not going to be forever is really nice. The other thing I try to do is I do disconnect. I'm not a huge fan of keeping my phone on me all the time during work hours. I have my phone, I've got Zoom calls coming through my computer. I mean, I'm on all these devices at the same time, but then when my work hours are over, nothing is going to really blow up in an hour or two. So I just take that time away, and, you know that maybe when you come back, you might, you know, have a lot that's going on. The other thing that really helps with work is if I have something that's dependent on someone else. Let's say I have a deadline, you know, of tomorrow that I need someone else to get me info for. I try to get all that stuff out the door first, so that it's really on me. So when that info comes back, I'm not waiting on other people. So I try to get those types of items out the door really quick, so that, you know, it's my responsibility to finish the deliverable when those come back. And it's not like a panic, like, oh, shoot, I need this person to do this. And it's like a panic at the last minute.
Yeah, for me, it's especially during, you know, working from home, It's just getting out, going for a jog or going for a walk. And, you know, sometimes when you do that, you'll actually have a realization about something that was happening at work or otherwise. But, you know, just getting out and get yourself moving and get some fresh air. And I find that just helps me, you know, kind of clear my mind and refocus. And then to utilize, someone mentioned earlier, but maybe when you get back from that, you know, jump into an hour or two of deep work and just really focus in on something that's sort of weighing you down, and you feel like you get that moving, and it kind of gets off your subconscious mind, and it allows you to kind of move forward without that burden on you.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of what everyone said, and I think, you know, definitely some physical activity helps. Doing it throughout the day is a great way to kind of break up the monotony and get out of your chair. So if it's going for a walk, or, you know, actually the funny thing is Jeremy mentioned he does gravel cycling. I bought a gravel bike in January. So it's a segment of biking that I didn't even know existed. Just about a year ago when I started doing my research into bicycles, and it's you know, finding what works for you and finding an outlet of physical activity, I think is a great way to kind of break up the work stress.
Yeah, a lot of firms will also have, you know, outlets for you. Like we do meditation Mondays and we have yoga on Thursdays. So a lot of firms will and take advantage of it, because it does break up the day. You know, it's a half an hour. It's not going to kill you. And it's fun to kind of do something different with your colleagues.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think even outside of the formal firm stuff, even just within your teams, it's fun to kind of just think of something. Like we used to, when I worked in downtown, you know, back when we were in the office, you know, we would just walk across the street to the LA Public Library just to kind of stretch our legs and just literally walk around the library and just do a lap, because it's a cool structure. And then do little walking field trips like that. Or even, you know, during busy season, when we work longer hours, we would sometimes just take quick little stretch breaks or do a quick little push-up contest, whatever it is, and, you know, crack some jokes in the meantime, make fun of each other for not being able to do the most push-ups. And just finding, you know, little things like that, little minor, you know, quick team bonding exercises, activities, just to kind of, you know, get your head out of work for a bit, reset, and that'll usually help you just recharge just a little bit so you can kind of finish the day.
We used to race up the stairs to the 11th floor. That was always a good one. Those downtown buildings, you can be on high floors sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you all for sharing. I think it's always very important to de-stress. The work is a lot, so it's important to have that moment for yourself to de-stress and unwind. Just a final question for everyone. What is the best piece of advice you were given by a mentor or a professional, or maybe that you learned along the way, that you could share with our students when you were recruiting?
I'd say, although you finish school, you never stop learning and continue that ambition to always seek more knowledge, especially in this time and age where everything is changing, right? There's a lot of new technology, new kinds of regulations, new laws. Just look at last year alone. We have so many new laws just from the pandemic, not to mention all the new technology that everyone has to get accustomed to. And being on the edge of that really sets you apart for life. If you just become a student of life, I think you gain a lot more value from everything that you do, not just work.
So I remember a Chicago partner in a training saying, all right, so you guys are in M&A, you need to have some confidence. Like when you talk to somebody through a deal, you need to be confident about what you talk about. And I'll never forget that comment from the Chicago partner, because there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. And you want to make sure that when you go in to anything you do, you have confidence and you believe in yourself, but not to the point where you're stepping away from being a student of life. As you want to learn, but you also want to be confident in what in the approach you take.
Yeah, and the thing I'll add to that too is, just this is a people business, even though, the I guess the stereotype is that accountants are numbers people and they just want to sit behind a desk and crunch numbers. But I think that's actually the furthest thing from the truth. You're constantly dealing with people, and just be well-rounded, read things that aren't accounting related so that you're able to have conversations with people and relate to people and have ideas about different things. I never read a lot when I was younger, and someone told me once, if you read 10 pages a night or a day, that's over 3,600 pages a year. That's a lot of books that you could get through if you break it down like that. And I just started doing that and opening myself up to different topics and ideas. And that just allows you to connect with so many more people in different ways. And nowadays you could do it with podcasts or, all types of different things. So just, be open to how you can connect with people. And the more you're able to connect with people, I think the more that's going to benefit you as you move forward in your career.
Yeah, so the best advice I ever got was, I remember her so well, Deb Webster at Bank of America. And it was back in the days where you worked like 8 to 5. So I don't think anyone going forward is going to have those hours. Like you had to have you had to be in your cubicle at 8 o'clock. Everybody was, and you took lunch at 12 to 1, right? We're much more flexible now. And I appreciate that. But she told me, she said, when your kids have something, never miss it. So it was very easy back then to just say, oh, it's just a little 5-minute thing at school, right? They're just gonna, wave a flag or whatever it is. And it was so easy to just say, oh, well, my husband will be there, the grandparents, they won't notice that I'm not there. She said, never, ever miss that, because your kids will always remember what you miss, but you'll never remember the meeting that you missed to be there. And that was really kind of resonated with me, because I'm like, she's right. I'll never remember that, oh, this client, I had to move this client meeting, but the kids will always be like, oh, mom wasn't at my play. So that was a really big one that hit home for me.
That's so true. I think that's really important. The work will be there when you get back for the most part, and also some, crazy deadline, but every deadline kind of has some wiggle room to it. I mean, maybe except for IRS deadline or SEC deadline, but if you have something going on in your personal life, lean on your team, because those people are going to want you to have those experiences. And I think it's really important to keep that balance. So I totally agree with that. It's really, really important and great advice.
I think that's a great takeaway. Thank you for sharing that, Barbara. Now that we come near the end of our meeting, I would just like to go through the announcements one more time before we take our group picture. So please join us for karaoke night tomorrow at 3 p.m. for a fun afternoon to de-stress. We have set a pickup site for spring member apparel Saturday the 24th from 11 to 2 p.m. at the Northridge Park near CSUN. Executive applications are open and due May 3rd at noon, and directorship applications are due May 15th at 11:59 p.m. If anyone has questions or wants to chat with a director info session will be held next Monday from 12 to 1, and an exec info session right after that. These roles really help develop leadership skills, so we highly encourage everyone to apply. This semester, we want to do something a little different for our graduating members, so we will be hosting a grad night. An invite email was sent out Monday, and the last day to RSVP is May 2nd at 11:59 p.m. The event is on May 7th from 3 to 4:30 p.m. Grad Night is open to all graduates and members who would like to join the activities Outdoor Adventures has planned for us that day. So now, if Nicole is going to take our picture, so if you would like to turn on your camera, now is the time.